They say money can't buy happiness, but in 2021, Samsung really tried. The S21 Ultra was supposed to be peak smartphone. 100 times zoom, 8K video, 16 cameras, and 5 years later, do these numbers even mean anything anymore? So today I'm doing something really fun. I'm going back to 2021 when the Z Fold used to look like this, and Apple's definition of innovation was just moving the camera slightly.
Wow.
All this to see if the phone still deserves to be called Ultra. And what better way to test this phone than to start with the cameras, right? The only problem is that the sky looks like this and it's raining outside. Yeah, I don't think I'm built for touching grass. I guess I have to go outside. There's nothing I can zoom into in my bedroom, so why do I have to live in the UK? So I realized that the phone isn't technically 5 years old, because that would be in 2 months when the S26 Ultra comes out, but I like to round things up, just like my height, because 5'8" is basically the same as 6 foot. You know, I miss when back in the day, new phone releases were actually exciting. They come up with the most ridiculous specs and it gets you exciting, but now it's just like, another phone. Also, they put the word Ultra to show that it's the best, most premium phone that you can get. But the question is, are the cameras still Ultra? I think I just found the perfect place to test this. As you can see, there are some very far away buildings that someone has placed. And I'm far away from everyone because I don't want anyone to see what I'm doing. And now it's time to pull out my 6.8 inch and play with it. And straight away we encountered a little problem because it started to rain pretty heavily.
No, it's raining.
Now I feel like I'm actually cooked because it's fully raining and I just sat down on the grass and I can feel the water just ascending into my crack. So that's not great. But that's still not gonna stop me from testing the camera on this 6.8 inch. But before I do, let me tell you something. Last night I was trying to watch some Netflix, so I got my snowballs out for some snacking when I've realized that Rick and Morty is actually not available in all countries. What? But worry no more because our sponsor Surfshark saves the day. Because with Surfshark VPN you can pick any of the 4,500 servers in any of the 140 countries and suddenly you just teleport there. So if I pick the United Kingdom, boom, suddenly the show just appears and I'm able to watch it. Not only that, but if you feel a little dodgy using public Wi-Fi, worry no more because it hides your IP and it keeps you safe by encrypting your online data. It's basically like having Protection 4 in real life, and you can slap it on any device that you have because with one account you can use it on unlimited devices. And guess what? You don't get tracked. Basically, it makes the internet less sketchy, especially with all that sus content that you look up online. It also has other tools like an inbuilt antivirus and a private search, which doesn't have any of the sponsored results. So if you don't want to risk your accounts getting hacked, you can use this link or use the code SNOWBALL at checkout to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark VPN. That is crazy. And if you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Like, bro, there is like no reason not to try it. And thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring my content. And now let's go back to testing. Now I don't know what's going on, but I don't think that's normal for a selfie camera. I think it's completely cooked. What is going on here? Anyway, let's test the 8K. As you can see, there is so much jello effect and I completely forgot, but this phone only had 24 FPS at 8K and it looks jittery, it looks jello-y. I don't know what's going on here. Also, the stabilization is just gone and look, if I shake the phone a little bit, it looks crazy. If I press the recording though, hopefully some of it gets fixed, just like on the old phone, the S20 Ultra. After the recording was saved, it actually looked a little bit better, but honestly, I think 8K is completely pointless. But then I tested 8K a bit more, and I was even more disappointed. Wow, that 8K is terrible on the S21 Ultra. The stabilization completely sucks, and it's slightly cropped in. You can tell when I shake the footage, the S21 Ultra just completely freaks out, and the S25 Ultra seems to be completely normal. So that seems to be one area that they improved, although I still wouldn't use 8K. Samsung loves talking about zoom. In fact, their first Ultra model even had 100x space zoom written on the camera module. That's like putting your height on Tinder bio. We get it. You're proud. Anyway, what's interesting is that both of these phones have similar zoom cameras, so the 3x is somehow a little bit bigger on the S21 Ultra. I don't know what happened here. But then, I forgot about this, but this still had the 10x zoom, whereas the S25 Ultra was downgraded to 5x. But is that really a downgrade? Well, let's find out. Time was running out as I was getting really wet, and not in a fun way. If we go to photo, the 1x looks completely fine, and then 3x is where it kicks in into the telephoto, and then it doesn't kick in all the way until 10x. And look, and actually let's go all the way up to 100x to see if the advertised numbers still look any good. Okay, that's not too bad, but now let's compare it to the S25 Ultra. I actually kind of forgot to film anything because I was getting kind of wet, which meant that I had to walk all the way back the next day, which is when I made even more discoveries. Which is also when I noticed something moving in the sky and I had to pull out my phone. It was an airplane, which gave me a perfect opportunity to test the zoom again. And this is a picture that I got on the S21 Ultra, and this is the S25 Ultra. Obviously, the left one looks better, but honestly, most of that new detail just looks drawn on by AI. Still kind of impressive though. Although this chimney looks miles better on the S25 Ultra. One thing that I noticed was that on the older phone, it was much harder to keep it steady. It was just swaying all over the place like a drunk pensioner, but the S25 was locked in and steady as a rock, which made it a lot easier to take zoomed in photos. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, megapixels, because what's even happening? So typical cameras have like 24 megapixels, and then I remember back in the day, Nokia made this phone, the Lumia 1020, and it had like 41 megapixels, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then Samsung put 108 megapixels on this phone, and then we just jumped to 200 on the S22 Ultra. Like, what? Are we just inventing numbers now? Before I get completely soaking wet, let me take a couple 108 megapixel photos. Okay, so if we tap up here, we get 108 megapixels, and let's take the photo. Yeah, the processing is not that long, but if we zoom in, that's what the city sign looks like on 108 megapixels. And let's do that with 12. Let's zoom in and, okay, fair enough. There is actually a little bit more detail, but is it as good as 200 megapixels? And yeah, the 200 megapixels looks a tiny bit better, but it also just refuses to load on Premiere Pro, so that's just pointless. Apparently the selfie camera is supposed to be really good because it's like 40 megapixels or something. So let's take a picture. Oh wow, it actually saves it as 40 megapixels. That's impressive. That's some pretty good detail, I'm not gonna lie. So if the camera hasn't really changed that much, then what has? The battery? Well, no. It's like the same battery. I feel like everything that made the phone Ultra back then isn't really Ultra anymore by today's standards. If you were to ask Samsung, what's Ultra about your phone? Their response would be, yes. In fact, if you look at some Chinese phones like the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max, the battery is so much bigger. The zoom cameras are better. They got like the same features. The fast charging is crazy. Basically nothing about this phone really feels Ultra anymore, or even the S25 Ultra. But cameras is one part of the story, and maybe this phone can redeem itself. When I got home, I grabbed my lotion and my 6.8 inch and I took it to bed where I was gonna have some fun in bed. Yo, how cool was that transition? I do like the S25 Ultra's design. It's boxy, it's titanium, flat screen, and the cameras look huge, but that's the thing. They are basically the same cameras, but the rings are so massive that they look twice as big. Samsung is just good at making things look big. I should take notes. The back looks like a complete mess. There's like 16 cameras here, but there is a little thing sticking out and there's like crust in there. Anyway, it's time to have some actual fun. Now for the performance section, aka the section where I pretend the numbers matter, you could just Google the numbers yourself. But I'm gonna show you anyway because I don't want you to leave. Please don't leave. So I'm gonna run Geekbench on both phones and I'm gonna see what happens. Now while the benchmarks are running, let me tell you something. So I just saw this video and it said that basically back then around this time, the phone CPUs were kind of cooked and even the older generation CPUs were just as good, if not better. So I don't know what happened, but maybe stay away from the S21 Ultra and the S22 Ultra just for that reason. And here are the final numbers. It's basically almost 3 times as fast. And if that means anything to you, well done. You're not gonna notice the difference when scrolling, but wow, we've actually come a long way. Looking back, I don't think the S21 Ultra aged badly. It just kinda grew up and stopped being interesting. More like, I've seen some things, and I'm tired now, boss. Samsung didn't really reinvent anything since this phone. They just sanded down the edges, made everything feel safer and more predictable. The S25 Ultra is refined, sure, but it also lost that spark that made the Ultra name sound so insane back then. And honestly, Chinese phones came in like, move bro. And now they're doing everything that Samsung used to do, with the crazy numbers. So yeah, the S21 Ultra is still good, but it doesn't feel Ultra anymore. It feels more like a reminder of when Samsung actually took risks. And thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now go click the link. It takes like 2 seconds.